people, I'm pretty excited. I've been following the journey of the deity of vegan cakes in Sydney for a long time, and now I get to interview them, which makes me the happiest little plant person. Panda, thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm very excited to chat with you about all things cake and otherwise.
And so this is your home office.
Yeah.
What a beautiful space.
Thank you very much.
You haven't always worked from home though, have you?
No. When I started, I was working from home and very quickly realized that's a terrible idea because I wanted to be able to breathe and have a different workspace. But the business did take off a lot faster than I anticipated. And I very quickly realized I needed to get out.
Right. So when did you start first making your cakes?
So I actually didn't start with cakes. I started in 2015 and I had created a blog where I was making vegan Indonesian food.
Right.
Because my background is Indonesian and there wasn't anyone making Indonesian vegan stuff. So I'd started this blog, I was posting things and people were actually making my recipes and I was like, oh, cool. And my friend said, well, why don't you ride on your bike and take those meals to people? So I started with these Indonesian lunch boxes.
Oh,
that
wow.
I cycled around Sydney with different names every week, things like Rendang and Stimpy and
that's hilarious.
Do Re Mi Goreng and that was before all the Uber Eats, Deliveroo drivers and stuff. So it was quite novelty, this Panda bike delivery vegan lunchbox service. And I got a few write-ups with Concrete Playground, Broadsheet.
Great.
And so I got some press pretty rapidly and I was working from home and then all of a sudden I was doing 70 lunches from my tiny home kitchen.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, gotta go. And moved into a kitchen space with a few other people. And at that point, people started asking me if I could do cakes. And I had no idea what I was doing. I was like...
You're joking.
I had no idea. I had no background in making cakes. I maybe made a couple of cakes in my life.
This is unfathomable because you'll see how amazing a cake maker you are. This is nuts. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Okay. So someone first said, "Can you make me a vegan cake?" And I was like, "Yep, no worries," because I didn't know how to say no. And so I did, and it was fine. It wasn't amazing. It was 2 layers. I didn't cut the domed tops off, so it was curved on the top, and I made some buttercream and I put 3 little raspberries on and it was very cute, and that was a cake. And that was the very first cake that I made for someone. And I think at the time there was a lot of raw stuff in the market, so which I didn't mind, but it was not what I wanted to make. I was like, I want baked cakes. I want flour, I want sugar. And I was following all these different cake makers on Instagram and I was like, yeah, but how do I do that but vegan? So I just started teaching myself from looking at things on Instagram and looking on YouTube and just practicing and trying different things. And I had so many customers in the beginning who were just happy for me to try. And some of those people still order from me today, knowing that my journey has been quite significant and what I make now is very different to what I made then.
Sure. So obviously there are challenges involved in owning your own business and bringing a cuisine already, your Indonesian cuisine isn't predominantly vegan, uses lots of vegetables obviously and lots of different herbs, but there's a lot of meat egg element in Indonesian cooking, right? So then to move into cakes, this is interesting. What do you use? Surely cakes need egg to make them rise and to keep them moist, and don't they need butter? How do you cream the butter in the sugar if you're not using butter?
Yeah. Big questions that people ask all the time.
Yes.
So yeah, it was a lot of experimenting. And thankfully a lot of people out there had already been trying and doing stuff. So there was recipes for me to start from. Substitutions are really not as hard as people think, I would say, but maybe I'm just good at mixing things together in a bowl. And so, yeah, my cakes are predominantly flour, sugar, baking powder, and so on. For egg, it's a question of what. Hello.
This is Cindy, by the way.
Cindy's here.
We didn't introduce her properly, which is probably why she wants extra pats.
She wants all the attention now.
She
even
deserves
though
it.
I thought you were just going to lie here and sleep. So yeah, egg does a couple of different things in a cake. So one important component is binding, and you can replace that with oil. Like a vegetable oil will help to hold all the particles together. The rise component is I replace with some rising agent like baking powder and baking soda and a little splash of vinegar, which causes a chemical reaction, and you get that rise and the nice crumb.
Yeah.
I also use a little bit of aquafaba oftentimes, which is the water from chickpeas. When they're cooked, and that liquid that you pour out of the can and down the sink, it turns out you can make amazing cakes with them. And I found that really helped with getting a bit more lightness, a better crumb, and overall better texture. So those were the main things for egg. Milk, soy milk is often great.
Yeah.
If there's a soy problem, I maybe try almond or coconut milk. And butter, we've got Nuttelex these days. Also vegetable shortening, 100% fat, pretty disgusting, but it
does the job.
It has a function. It has a function. So it's a lot of the things are really, I was surprised by how easy it was, but it did take some time to figure out what the right things were, what the ratios were, and the more science component of it.
A bit of trial and error.
Yeah. I think the two main things I've learned from cakes is that you need to understand some chemistry and science, and you also need to understand some architecture and structural things when you're building a more elaborate, tall, tiered cake. So
Okay, so where did the creative side come in? Because as well as this, you figured all of that out, but then your cakes have gone from 3 raspberries on top, right, to these, they're incredible, huge, some of them really huge, like they call them mega cakes, but these structures with multiple layers, and not only that, but like the way you blend color, the way you put like all of the different variations of toppings on top. Like where does the creation side of you come from? What you have a background in the arts, right?
Yeah. So I did my first degree was in performing arts, and that was a very multidisciplinary sort of performance space that we went through. So I definitely learnt a lot around composition, color, design elements. And it's funny because I always said I wasn't a visual artist. Like I didn't work with painting or drawing, that sort of thing. I was a performance artist. But I think that was just a silly way of me putting these labels on, where actually all these different things inform each other. And so I also had a ongoing interest in fashion and design, colors. So all these things kind of came together into what I was making. I really loved cake artists like Sabbath. She's phenomenal. She's not vegan, but what she does is bright, over the top, really 80s kind of inspired, big graphic sort of looks. And that in particular was like, wow, that's so striking. And this canvas of the cake is just another medium, and the paint is the buttercream, and I can use other multimedia like pieces of chocolate or dehydrated orange slices that look like little stained glass windows, or I really wasn't into fondant stuff. For me, I was like, I was like, well, first off, just because it's edible doesn't mean it tastes good.
I actually agree. I know. We might get in trouble for this. We might get some bad comments, but I tend to agree. Fondant isn't my favorite thing. If you're gonna put it on, like, don't you want it to taste really good?
That's what I think. It certainly is a whole nother art form as well.
Oh, totally.
So,
yes.
I don't discredit that whatsoever. You can do such visually beautiful things with fondant. However, it just isn't something I'm particularly skilled at. So I love buttercream. I think it's a lot of sugar, it's sweet, but that's what I want from cake. Yeah. And that I can use it like paint and blend or do striking splashes of color was really, really interesting that I could play around with that and find how to use it and deepen my skills in like painting, which I thought I couldn't do, and be like, well, actually I can paint on this white cake canvas and make something really cool and striking and this edible art piece.
What is the weirdest request you've ever had for a decoration on a cake?
I get really weird ones quite a lot, actually. And there's plenty of people who are like, I love the watercolors and the flowers and a pretty drip. And you know, those are easy. I can do them with my eyes closed. Mm-hmm. I really enjoyed one that was asking for a cigarette butt, like a durry butt cake. So
wow,
what I did, and I was like, look, whenever I do those sorts of briefs, I let them know that I take a very lateral sort of approach. So it'll be an inspired by, as opposed to like, here it is. Like with fondant workers, sometimes it is like really that thing.
Yes.
This was so I did a tall style cake. I used color like orange at the bottom, blending into white. I used sesame, ground black sesame to do like ash on the top. And I did a big iso malt, like sugar work piece that had black kind of blended through it to sit on top and be like the smoke coming out on top. So that was a very weird, interesting one that people on the internet thought was very funny. So I wasn't mad about it, but I was like, this is so weird. I also did a garbage bin cake recently for I think a 2-year-old. The kid just really loves bins. So be it.
This, you know, we all have our thing. There's no judgment. There's no judgment in the cake world.
No judgment. So again, I was like, look, it's going to be inspired by. So I did a square cake and it had like a little lid that was off, and like coming out of it was just swirls of buttercream and little lollies coming down and that sort of thing. So a bit more of a fun magic bin rather than a
sounds like my kind of bin.
Yeah. Not like your Wednesday night, the recycling's out, but like, you know, it's got a bit of glitter and gold leaf.
So good. And do you miss now that you're making just more and more cakes, and that cakes are definitely what you're known for? Do you miss the savory element, or is that really nice because now you just do the savory element for yourself and your friends and family?
I think that's exactly it. Like I love cooking Indonesian food, and feeding people is my love language, 100%. Yes. I'm like, if I like to make sure that you feel cared and looked after, you don't leave my house with an empty stomach. I think that's a cultural thing as well. Like,
lucky for me, I'm in her house right now.
So yeah, I get to feed people Indonesian food at home and have people over for dinner or deliver care packages of jackfruit rendang or something to my friends if they're not feeling well, and that gives me a lot more joy to have that separation. Whereas cakes, while I love to make good tasting things, it's definitely more about a creative visual component. Well, I still like to plate things nicely, though.
Yes.
Even if it's
so just slapped into a container and sent on its way.
Yeah. Like if it's soup, it's still going to be pretty soup.
And how have you integrated then the Indonesian flavors into your cakes? Do you have like what you would call like a signature cake at all, or?
Yeah, I grew up eating green cake, which people
it's
sometimes
so
get weirded out by. Yeah.
If like I grew up in Tasmania, I didn't have a falafel in my childhood, you know. so green cake, weird, but
yeah, totally. So pandan is a very common flavor in Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
It's a leaf, a long green leaf that an extract is made from. It's a hard one to describe to people, but it's kind of like vanilla, kind of like coconut, kind of its own thing. And it's very fragrant, really beautiful taste. And the extract is a bright green color. So I have had people ask me can you do the pandan but not green? I'm like, it's like raspberry but not red. It's like it's just not possible. It's gonna.
We're not making pop rocks.
Yeah. Yeah. So the pandan is definitely one of my most popular cakes. It's a melt in your mouth buttery sort of cake. I like to combine that either with raspberry for a more like fresh sort of flavor, or I combine it with a palm sugar and toasted coconut combination, which is reminiscent of a dessert called klepon, which is a traditional Indonesian dessert, which is like little green balls of kind of like an Indonesian mochi. So on the inside, there's this liquid palm sugar that when you bite it, it bursts everywhere. And the green rice flour ball that's gooey and rolled in coconut.
Sounds amazing.
It's pretty...
So you're replicating that flavour in a cake?
Yeah. So it's my klepon cake.
Yum. And so would that be your recommendation if someone is coming to you for the first time and they want something that's just a little bit different than all of the other cakes that you can get everywhere? Because you do the standard chocolate, like vanilla, caramel's very in at the moment, so there's the salted caramel as well. But is there a flavor that you would be like, go for this one?
That's definitely like my all-time favorite, and the responses are always
the Panda,
really fantastic. Yeah, people really enjoy it. So that's exciting and great that I can share my culture through this like quite kind of quirky, unusual green cake. So I think that's definitely my go-to recommendation for people if they're a bit more cautious, and I'm like, okay, well, we can do like coconut or vanilla or chocolate, like all those sorts of things, but I like to push into more interesting flavors when I can.
Of course. That's so great.
There is a lot of work involved in the decorating, and I mean every component of it, so it's I just hope that they get respected until they get consumed.
Because they get ruined. Like, let's face it, as soon as we start to eat, the cake is ruined.
Yeah, and that's the most interesting yet absurd component to me. I spend all this time, people spend all this money to honor my time and my skill in order to make this beautiful centerpiece for their table that gets chopped up and eaten and digested and onwards. Like, it's so absurd to me, but I guess that's the beauty of food. And
it is the beauty of food.
We invest so much of ourselves in creating and consuming this incredible thing that gives us this moment of joy, but then it's gone. So then what? You've got photos, I hope.
Yeah. And speaking of photos, if people want to follow your journey and they're not living in Sydney, where do they find you?
So on Instagram is the best place, My Little Panda Kitchen. And you can also follow me on Facebook or go over to my website. I have some beautiful new photos that are coming out very soon.
So exciting.
So the website's going to look really slick.
Awesome. And is that mylittlepandakitchen.com?
That's it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Panda. Thank you so much for being such a good girl, Cindy.
Thank you.
It was really nice sitting here talking with you. And guys, check it out. Check out all of the beautiful cakes on the Instagram page. And if you're in Sydney, do yourself a favor and order yourself a cake from Panda. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time, Plant People. Bye. Well, that's it for this episode of Plant People. Don't forget to comment, hit like and subscribe. And follow us on Instagram at plantpeople.tv. And if you are a plant person or you know any plant people, hit us up in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. See you next time.